I had the volume down.
Yeah.
Gotta do all those, all the tests. Nick, I hope you got a new computer hookup or something.
We worked on it yesterday. It seems so far like people can hear me.
Good. Yeah, I could hear you loud and clear there.
Hello, Tracy.
Hey,
We were
I'm
just
here.
pretending last
Tracy.
time.
Tracy's here. All right. Hi, Trace.
No, Jack.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Is it time?
6:59, Mike.
I was gonna say, I got this, I'm looking.
You guys already did your board of control?
Yes.
We're on top of things.
You didn't think the mayor would let us go by 30 seconds on that, did you?
Well, maybe 45, I thought.
6:55, they were right on the minute.
We're,
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we have a special public health and safety committee meeting. Dave?
sure, thank you. Thank you, Jack. I don't think this is a news flash to anybody, right? The discussion of masking and obviously it's been a national issue and it's become more and more local. Unfortunately, I love Joan, but she keeps sending me updates that show numbers rising even in Portage County and even in Kent. So the virus has not decided to just take a vacation in the summer. And because of that, as in expectation of continued potential exposure, risks, and with expectation of students returning, you all referred back to staff to have us maybe come back to you with some discussion about making masking mandatory, because I think we're still at level orange, not red, right, Joan?
Correct. You're correct, Dave.
So Joan kept saying that she was sort of taking bets all week. She's like, well, the way the numbers are going, it may not matter what council thinks. We may be red before we get to Wednesday night. But I guess good news is we're not red, but we still haven't, we're certainly not out of the woods. And there's a lot of interest. I know that residents have expressed, Kent State has expressed to see the city adopt a mandatory masking ordinance. And so Joan is here to kind of talk a little bit more about the masking specifically. And I will tell you, we have an ordinance drafted that Joan worked with Hope on and basically mirrored it after some of the other cities that are also doing this. We've had conversations with our peers, particularly around us. I mean, we got Hudson and Stowe, certainly because they're already dealing with this. And thankfully, we have a downtown business owner on council, Gwen. She took it upon herself. So I've been communicating with her, but she's been really knocking on doors and doing some canvassing, I assume with full mask, canvassing downtown, talking to downtown business owners, kind of get a read of their, their take on it. Because obviously it can be contentious. Unfortunately, I really hate that it's become a politicized issue as opposed to a public health issue.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And so I guess with that, as much as I do it really at this point, maybe Joan, you or Hope, either one of you want to lead off kind of with what we're thinking moving into this discussion?
Well, and certainly Hope can talk about the legalities and those issues, but I think the concern is that we want to be proactive. That's kind of been our stance since the start of this, that we were doing things before it might seem necessary to some people to try to stay ahead of this virus and the spread and the havoc that it wreaks in its wake. So I don't know if everyone had the opportunity to listen to Governor DeWine. I think he preempted a lot of what I might have liked to say, but he was really requesting every Ohioan to wear a mask when they're outside of their house, regardless of the level that their county is currently in, whether that's yellow, orange, red, or purple. So, and again, this is to get in front of the virus. We see that the increased numbers. Some people say, well, that's because there's increased testing. The governor said, yes, our testing has increased by 87%, but our percent of positive test results have increased by almost 200%. So it's not just because we're doing more testing, it's because there are more cases to be found. So we really, we don't want things to get out of control and be like the experience that's the people in Florida and Arizona and Texas are having right now. And currently we're about 3 or 4 weeks. Looking at our position today, the numbers of new cases that we're having on a daily basis in Ohio, we're on target to be the next Texas, the next Arizona in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So we really want to try to tackle this and get out in front of it now. And so by encouraging everyone to wear a mask, there's already a number of people who have embraced it. I think there's some people who are sitting on the fence and kind of waiting for that little push. And so we're hopeful that tonight, if council would agree, that we would have that extra push to get those people who are sitting on the fence to start wearing a mask, and maybe even start persuading those who don't believe in the science. But the thing is, even for people who don't believe in masks, the great thing is masks still work for them too. So we want to make sure that we not only are practicing our rights, but our responsibilities as citizens to protect ourselves and each other. And that's why we're making this request.
Okay. Anything else to add? Dr. DeJulius?
I can reiterate everything Joan said, and I can talk all night about it. So, you know, I could maybe just answer any questions, but I mean, the science is so solid. Every country that's succeeding in controlling this virus is doing universal masking. And it's probably particularly timely for this city to do it before the campus reopens. If it's not already in place when those people start coming, you can't put it back in the box. Even if we did it today, it would still be 2 or 3 more weeks before we saw a change in our numbers, probably. Because remember, we're always weeks behind because of incubation period and et cetera. So I cannot support it more than 100%. So there's my 100%. But if anyone has questions, I'll do my best.
Okay. Council, any questions? Tracy?
Great.
Yeah, I wanted to know, this is going to be the responsibility of the health department to enforce this, correct?
I will take that answer. If you read this ordinance, we left out an enforcement section.
Yes.
I did not know where council wanted to go, so we left that open so that we could talk about it. There was also some internal discussions about how we are all being stretched to our thinnest. And I think there'd probably have to be an appropriation at some point or another if we were going to do an enforcement with masks.
Yeah, I thought we were going to hire a couple of extra people to do this and use the COVID money for that reason. We can do that, correct?
So that is an option. We're waiting for Rhonda to get a better read on how much cash. In other words, we got a $900,000 allotment of COVID monies. Have we spent only 100,000 of it, or we spent 899? And so, yes, I think that is part of the plan. What I would say to you is, we talked to Stowe, we talked to Hudson. We're basically going to mirror what they're all doing. The health department takes the lead. I would say this is not an effort to sort of criminalize masks. This is an effort to educate, inform, and continue to push people, as Joan said, maybe across the other side of the fence. Obviously, if things get really bad, you continue to raise the stakes on your enforcement. But I think for the most part, the plan is to have, you know, Joan has a new video that she's using on her website. We're going to use a phone number that will go to the hotline, will go into the health department. We're working on a web-based form to the health department. Really, if things escalate, I know there was a situation in Michigan where an individual stabbed somebody over masking. Obviously, that kind of scenario, the police would be called. So again, we were really just trying to follow Hudson, Stowe, some of our folks that have already been doing this around us, and we will, you know, continue to enforce it the best that we have abilities to do so.
Because I know that Akron just passed the ordinance, and they are actually going to penalize people with that. And I know that way back when, DeWine strongly recommended mask wearing, but he did not have any enforcement of it. And now we're in the situation that we're in right now. And also I wanted to know, you recommend face masks. There are certain face masks though that should not be worn. The ones that have the check valves. So they look like this. I don't know if you can see it. See the check valve there? Those do not protect the public from COVID. That only protects the wearer, because those were designed for air particulates like drywall and ash and things like that. So the person can breathe out of that check valve and it gives the droplets out to the public. So can we put something anyway in the ordinance that says accept masks containing check valves? Because those will not help the public.
I guess my initial reaction, Tracy, would be, I'm not sure if we should be in the ordinance or just that's part of the information, because the ordinance sets the parameters, but the details, I would look to Joan's department and the education and the information items that they put together. Part of the plan is to have sort of posters with some basic information that could go to businesses around town. So one of the things that we've heard from the business community is don't make us have to fully enforce this thing either, because they're doing their best to survive. I mean, the last thing they want to do is chase customers away, but obviously they want safety too. So it's that constant balance. So the idea would be to have posters available in the businesses that they can point to and say, it's not me, it's the city, it's the governor. So anyways, that would be my initial reaction to that.
Okay. And then another question I had was, one of the residents that sent in an email had a good point. Are we going to supply reusable masks to low-income families so that they can have those available? And also, are we going to supply? I don't want to supply the disposable ones because we want to be environmentally conscientious. Can we supply to businesses that want them some masks that are reusable so that if somebody comes in without a mask, they can offer the person a mask to wear? Are we planning on doing that?
We've been talking about that, and the availability of those reusable may be a challenge. We even talked, Gwen had suggested, what about the possibility of, giving a certain allotment to each business downtown or wherever in Kent, so that if a customer does come in without a mask, they could say, hey, don't leave, I got a mask for you. So we're looking at those options. I would refer to Joan and maybe Melanie. She's sort of the keeper of the inventory. I don't know how. I know Davy Tree just today offered to send us some of their Davy Tree masks or their gaiters that you can put up over your face. They were going to donate those, and I think tomorrow we should be able to pick them up. So we're trying to get some inventory, Joan. I don't know. Do you have any intel on that?
Yeah, I did make arrangements, and I will be picking up that very generous donation from Davy Tree that I think is very nice. Part of me is saying that since COVID's going to be with us for a while, this has got to be a part of business. That's a part of the cost of doing business is having those masks. I agree with Ms. Wallach. I'm not really in favor of disposable masks because of the waste it creates, but on the spectrum, if that's what we have to have starting out with, I think that that's better than not having any masks for businesses. So if we can help them get a leg up and get started, and then they can start assuring their own supply chain with reusable masks, because they are everywhere, and it's a great marketing tool. I mean, like I said, the one company came and gave ones with their logos on it. So, there's many options there, and I think we can help bridge that.
And with the low-income families, will the health department just have them available for them to pick up then?
I mean, I don't believe so. I mean, if there's certain areas of need, like I reached out to Kent Social Services, we had a really generous donation of masks, and I reached out to Kent Social Services. They said that they had plenty of their own masks to provide to low income and marginalized individuals that, maybe like the homeless individuals that live in Kent. So, I mean, we have a small supply that I would be willing, but I mean, right now we're not open to the public as walk-ins, so it's very difficult for people to just stop by and ask for masks. I did pass out quite a few during the Black Lives Matter protests to protesters who were willing to take those masks.
Okay, but Social Services has that covered.
As far as I know, I can definitely check with them and see if we could maybe help boost their supply as well, so that there's more availability to everybody.
Okay, all right, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? John?
Yeah. Joan, I've been just going nuts reading and reading. You know, when I go into a business, I have a N95 mask that I wear. I basically wear it as a psychological antidote to the COVID virus. The research that I see, if I understand it correctly, about 60% of it says that you exhale the large particles of the COVID would be trapped somewhat in the mask. If you had a HEPA filter in the mask, it would even be better. But still, your air, all your microscopic particles go out. I saw some videos where you breathe out. If your mask is restrictive in the front, it shoots behind you. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the air's got to go somewhere, and the particles have to go somewhere. So what my question is okay, with it going somewhere, the bulk gets slowed down, if I'm correct, and the particles drop to the surface around the person that's emitting them. Is that correct?
I just want to clarify that a mask has to be fit correctly. So if there's gaps where, you know, an individual like myself that wears glasses, if my glasses are fogging up, I know my mask is not fitting well. So I need either a different style or I have to adjust the nose band. So if you're feeling a lot of air around your face, that's a concern that the mask is not fit properly. In terms of the virus size, it can pass through the mask, but it's just that the virus isn't independent. It's trapped in globules of our respiratory secretions, and those are what's trapped in the mask. So the mask is going to help filter those respiratory secretions. And you've probably seen the pictures of people talking with and without a mask, and you can see the aerosolization that comes out without a mask and how it's muted and stopped when the mask is in place. So it is definitely effective.
Well, what I'm saying, yes, it is effective, and it slows down the projection or shortens the projection. But if you're breathing, the air is still coming out, so the viruses are still coming out.
No, the CO2 is coming out, but not necessarily the viruses, because the virus is, again, trapped in the respiratory secretions that get trapped in the mask. So your carbon dioxide is able to exchange through the mask, and oxygen is able to come in, but you're not going to be shedding as much virus because it's being trapped in the respiratory secretions of the mask.
Right, not as much, but some.
And remember, nobody is saying that
So,
masks are 100% going to prevent transmission. Masks are one of many layers of things that we need to do. And, you know, where a mask fails and some virus gets around it, maybe social distancing will, you know, be the next layer that prevents a transmission.
Right.
What we need to do, if we want to bring the number of cases down, is make sure that every individual case does not lead to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more cases, right? So anything we do that reduces the number of transmissions that occur when there's human to human interaction is going to help. Nobody's saying masks are going to do it 100%, but they're very effective. Think of it as herd immunity.
That was only part of my question. What I was getting at was the little bit that does escape, the mass is helping, okay? The little bit that does escape, I see 2 issues that need addressed. Number 1 is the sanitation of what escapes, and number 2 is the sanitation of the mask.
Right. So you know, this might seem a little crude, but the going thought is to treat your mask like you do your underwear. Change it frequently, make sure it's clean every day, wash it regularly, always don a clean mask. If your mask becomes overly saturated, change it and put on a fresh, dry mask. So yeah, absolutely. We have to take care of our masks when they're on our face and when we take them off especially. Yeah.
Okay, and my final question is, what information do you have on copper impregnated masks?
Natural metals like copper and sometimes silver are thought to be antimicrobial in nature. I don't know that they're actually antiviral in nature. I don't know, Dr. DeJulius, if you have any background on that. So I'm not sure of their effect in terms of a virus.
There's some data on how long the virus will survive on different surfaces, and it actually survived, I think, the longest on some metal surfaces like stainless steel. But that's different than a mask that's impregnated with
threads.
metal. I mean, you would have to know so much more about it, what the density of the fibers was, and other factors. So I would say there's no magic to it.
Yeah, it was presented as one of the things that can kill the COVID virus, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
I would defer to
I had always heard that it was more antimicrobial, meaning bacterial, not antiviral.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I'd have to do a little more reading on that.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, I just got a pop-up on my computer saying starting scan. I did not schedule a scan, so if I disappear, Roger, take over for me. But any other questions? And I can't see either.
Jack?
I have a question. I've had my hand up for a while. This is Heidi.
Heidi, go ahead.
Yeah. I am all for masks. I have to say that. I wear a mask myself, just as John says he does. But I really think the devil's in the details, and we need to look at enforcement. I don't want to increase people's expectations that we're going to go after every single person that's ever been without a mask. And we need to figure out what our definitions are about public spaces to avoid causing confusion. So yes, I will put this in the form of a question. So I noticed in our recommended ordinances, for example, within a business, inside, it says to wear a mask and have 6 feet of social distancing. That basically makes it impossible for people to eat or drink. So are we suggesting now that everybody needs to wear a mask at all times? And I'm only saying this, I know this is absurd, but I'm only saying this in the sense that we need to be clear about what are the parameters of mask wearing because I don't want to ruin the businesses, and I also want to be in the spirit of our DORA, which is to invite people to be downtown where we believe it to be safe. How can we ensure the safety to the best of our ability and enforce this while also being clear about what it is we're enforcing?
So I think I can take part of that. One, I think the governor spoke to that very eloquently tonight, that face masks and cloth face cover wearing is actually an alternative to lockdown. It's something that's going to help our businesses be able to remain open. I don't believe, as of right now, you're allowed to dine out and not have a mask on at the point where you're consuming. So while you're sitting at the dinner table eating and drinking, you can take the mask off. You can be in your party of 4, 5, 6, up to 10 people and have your face mask off while you're sitting to dine. So I don't think that would hurt the businesses. It's while you're entering the establishment until you're seated at your table that you would want to wear your mask as you're passing by others who don't have their masks on because they're dining at that point.
Okay. That clarifies something, but it doesn't really conform to the suggested ordinance where it says wear a mask and socially distance when you're indoors. I think that we need to be clear because we're going to find out that the public, if there's confusion, we're going to get a lot of questions from the public. And I would like to be able to address the questions, just like we have so many questions now.
Exhibit A does have a lot of exceptions in there.
Okay.
And I will go back to the face mask as well. Face mask can be made at home. So someone could put a bandana on. Someone could double up a T-shirt and put it around their face, and it would comply with this ordinance. If the exceptions are, of course, if medically you can't wear one, if you're strenuously exercising, actively eating or drinking, communicating with the hearing impaired, making a speech, if you're under 5, and basically if you're in a business that you can't wear your mask, if you're at the dentist, of course you can't have dental work if you're wearing a mask, or maybe if you need to take it off if you're getting your hair colored or something like that.
What about going for a walk in your neighborhood?
If you're, you would be required to wear a mask if you are unable to socially distance from other people who are walking around you, but not in your group.
Gotcha. The unable to socially distance is the key. And I really think that we need to make sure that we educate that.
Right. So let's say we have a particularly busy night at Dora. Everyone might have to mask. Unless they're taking a drink of beer, I guess.
Yeah. Or they're seated in place.
Correct.
People that are walking around.
Correct.
May, just like the interior of a bar or restaurant, you know, the people that are seated kind of have that ability to maybe not wear a mask, except they might want to for their own protection.
Right.
If I would just, if I could come back to that, I kind of go back to what I said earlier. I would caution against trying to use our ordinance as our education information piece. I think you're talking about two separate things, Heidi. I think you're getting into the list that ought to be in the restaurant that Joan will have, brochures, flyers, press releases. I mean, most people don't read our ordinance, walk around with our ordinance to see what they can or can't do. It's not usually meant to be that. And in particular, not trying to be evasive here, but this is such a fluid environment. I don't want to lock us in too much with definitions in that ordinance. I want Joan to be able to adjust on the fly rather than having to wait for the next council meeting to change the ordinance. I would rather see enforcement, education, and information remain with the professional staff. You kind of create the parameters, a framework for it, but then you let Joan do her thing.
Agreed.
Well,
Agreed.
wait a minute. I disagree with that because only council can put definitions in place. And I see what you're saying about being able to go in and educate, but it's council's decision what if they're going to mandate masks. It's up to them to put into place what those mandates are going to be.
Yeah. And while I have the floor, I want to say one more thing that, you know, I guess my concern is increasing expectations that if people in the public see people without masks, they may assume that those people are breaking the law. And it really is circumstantial. So what, I understand you said something about having a website that people can write a concern into and then maybe get some feedback from. I think it would be really helpful to educate everybody as to what are the parameters, even as they're becoming fluid. So I really like that idea about helping people, because I know my fellow, my colleagues here and myself, we've been getting a lot of questions from the public. And, you know, there are a lot of situations that might need to be called, and how do we go about doing that? So, you know, and business owners too have some concerns, and I'll leave that for another part of the discussion. But just to say that I don't want to raise people's expectations to this level that if you step outside of your yard, you have to wear a mask. So that is my level of concern is how are we going to be pragmatic about this?
You know, I share that concern because I've seen YouTube videos or Facebook videos of people being ridiculed for not wearing a mask. And the governor, I think when he first indicated that masks would be the way to go, and he outlined the exemptions, he said that you should have the documentation of your exemption. If you were a business owner and maybe one of your staff members couldn't wear a mask because they fit into one of those exemption categories, to have that documented so that in case there was a question, the health department comes in and asks, or a patron comes in and asks, why isn't that staff member wearing a mask? That they could produce that and say, I have an exemption, I can't wear a mask. And then the discussion should end there, because we have to make sure that we don't ostracize people for the medical conditions that they have or the job related exemptions that preclude them from wearing a mask. So I'm not saying that we have to be card carrying members of the non-mask wearing club if you meet an exemption, but it might be a thoughtful way to keep it from escalating any further.
Joan,
Roger?
it's Robin.
Okay, Robin, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was wondering about that, the situation you just brought up with members of the public asking for a demand on whether or not somebody's meeting a regulation. Don't you feel that would be somewhat problematic? I mean, it's one thing for a business person to show that exception. The demand of a member of the public to get documentation on an exclusion or an exception seems to me to be somewhat problematic.
I can certainly look to other communities to see how they're handling that, because I'm sure it's coming up. I can also ask the other health commissioners that I have relationships with to see how they might address it. But I don't know if I couldn't wear a mask because I had a condition, maybe it's just me, I would have something on me so that I would, if somebody stopped me, I could say, look, I can't wear a mask. But I know not everybody could follow that. It might not be easy enough for everyone to do that.
Well, the bigger issue to me is the right of demand for a member of the public as opposed to an official demand. Yeah. That to me seems to be somewhat problematic. The other issue David brought up, which kind of concerned me, but Hope addressed, was the fluidity of application of rules that we established. That to me can be problematic as well. But Joan kind of Hope kind of addressed that. Once you put something down, it's a rule or a law. That has to be kind of definitive and less fluid. That's an aspect of me, but I understand why we would like for Joan to be able to make some adjustments and have flexibility. That's great. The actual application of rules and laws is concerning to me if, in fact, council has not mandated it and stated specifically that it is a rule or law or adopted it. So I'm a little more concerned about that. But like I said, I think that with Hope already establishing that she feels a little uncomfortable with it, I get it. But I understand what Dave was saying, because I appreciate that. And I think that, quite frankly, that's a good way. We want Joan to have flexibility, and that's a good thing. Just the actual application of law is something to me that I think has to be hard and fast. So, yeah.
Further, Robin?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Roger?
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Jack.
Disappeared, Roger.
Am I still there?
You disappeared. Your visuals gone. Your visuals gone. There you
There
are.
you are.
It's probably better I don't have a visual. See, I have to say, I got a question, but I want to frame the question in this way. I'm deeply disappointed that we started this whole conversation about enforcement rather than what Joan is talking about. I think what the governor has stated, that this is something that we need to set an expectation that everyone's going to wear a mask. And I think that's a critical piece. And when we start talking about enforcement, now we're talking about punitive. That's not what we want. We don't want to get to that position. So I have a fundamental question, and this is probably going to Hope. Hope, since we are going to mandate, if we pass this ordinance, masks, does that mean that we have control over students going to school wearing a mask, that all the teachers and staff at the public schools wear a mask? Do we have that authority as a city council?
Yes, you do. In the jurisdiction of the city of Kent, you have the authority to mandate that individuals in public settings, going into businesses that the public is invited into schools, into Kent State University, this city council has the authority to mandate masks.
Okay, so that's the first question. The second question then is, in the mandating of masks, the ultimate goal to protect the residents of the city of Kent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, there are no more questions.
Okay, John?
Joan, I've had 4 pulmonary, what do you call them? Clots in your lungs. And
Pulmonary embolisms.
embolism, that's it. I knew it. I just forgot it for a minute. I'm getting
Yeah,
old.
that's okay.
I have I've had pleurisy, so I have some issues with my lungs. Now, as a courtesy, not a mandate, as I mentioned, I wear my mask when I go into businesses. It's a courtesy to them. But I've noticed that if I keep my mask on for, say, half an hour, my oxygen levels will drop down into the high 80s, 88, 89, which I don't know if that's dangerous or not, but it's definitely not as good as 98 or 99. And so I could see where this might be an issue with some people also who have similar health problems, but don't want to say, well, okay, I'm handicapped because I can't cover my face up.
Well, my concern would be, I think I heard you mention earlier that you wear an N95. An N95 respirator is different than a cloth face covering. And although you have facial hair, which might prevent it from having a very tight fit seal, those are a different type of mask. And if you have health conditions, that might not be the best mask for you. I'm not a physician, so I don't want to tell you which type of mask to wear, but that might be one reason why you find it difficult to breathe after a half an hour or so of wearing it, is because that mask is too much for the need and your body's ability to oxygenate.
Well, I've tried the cloth mask, which I thought would be easier to breathe, and it's terrible. You know, I'm sweating in 10 minutes in that. So.
I don't know, Dr. DeJulius, do you have any recommendation or thought on that?
Well, I would agree with Joan that a cloth face mask or surgical mask is going to be easier in terms of your oxygen saturation. But I'll also agree with you that wearing them is very hot. I wear one all day at work. I'm sure many of you do. It's hot and sweaty, but does it make your oxygen level drop as much as an N95? Maybe, maybe not. But certainly we see people, we're seeing them now, you know, in the healthcare setting who are coming in saying, you know, I can't tolerate a mask because of my pulmonary condition or whatever. And so those would be the people that would have a valid reason to either wear it intermittently, maybe need to pull it down for 5 or 10 minutes periodically. I think those are the exceptions that we're talking about that need to be, accommodated.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I don't have to be trapped in a situation for hours at a time. I'm pretty much free spirit as far as being able to be out and about. So,
Okay, Mayor Fiala?
I guess some of the questions have been asked.
I'm in a council meeting.
What do I do? Wait a minute. Oh. Jack, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Oh, Sue's severe asthmatic. She herself takes extra precaution on where she's at, who she's around. She also tries different masks. Some masks are easier to breathe out of and some aren't. So I think it's kind of up to the individual what they can wear. And if it's the minimum, they still are adding to what we're after as a group. We want to lower this virus. When we lower the chances of getting this virus, we're more healthy and safer to the community of this town. And when that happens, our businesses are going to be able to stay open. And I've talked to some of the businesses downtown, and they're very concerned, but they accept the idea that the masks are going to keep them in business longer, and I have to believe that. But I wanted to really say what, my wife and her asthmatic. There's different types of masks, and there's also the ability to know where you should be and where you shouldn't be and how far you should be away from people.
Thank you, Jerry. Further? Tracy?
Gwen can go before me because she hasn't.
Gwen?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gwen.
I was just going to ask, in looking over the language of this ordinance, it looks very similar to me to the language of signage that we received from the Portage County Department of Health, and it looks very, it looks like the requirements are very similar to what I've seen in some other cities, but I haven't had an opportunity to compare this particular ordinance that we have here before us with other cities like Stowe or Cleveland or Akron or even Kent State's proposal. Is there anything in this proposed ordinance that is especially different or stands out, or is this, as it appears, generally along the same lines as what we're seeing in county-wide ordinances and in other cities that are implementing it?
It's generally the same, Gwen.
Okay, thank you. The question was just to be sure that I didn't want to pick apart something or have something or ruling that was very different. Since we do have college students coming into town, their parents and families may be coming into town too. So something that looks and reads and feels exactly like other communities makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, next was Tracy.
So I know I'm going to get questions from my residents because there are going to be some business owners that aren't going to comply with the face mask coverings. Is this going to work like the long grass where it's only going, like, if somebody complains to me about business, do I come to you, Joan, and say, please talk to these people, they're not wearing masks? Or how do I address that situation?
Yeah, I think Dave alluded earlier that there's a hotline that will be set up. There will be a means also, I think, through the website to get concerns to the health department so that we can follow up and talk with those individuals about what barriers they might be facing in terms of wearing a mask.
And,
I mean, we don't have the authority. We don't have police authority, so I don't have a ticket book that I can write tickets. Our authority is basically over businesses and operations that are licensed. That our authority comes with the ability to either provide a license or revoke a license. So I don't know that I would be writing a ticket. I know some counties have instituted fines, but I'm not sure how they're implementing that. I don't know if their health department is producing that citation for that fine.
No, I know there aren't fines, but I'm saying, so I would refer them to the hotline, and I'm saying, would you just come and say, we're saying that you should wear masks, so please put masks on or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and some of it is going to be time sensitive, you know, so if somebody says, oh, I was in downtown Kent on Friday night and I saw 3 people and here are their names and they didn't have on masks, when I get that complaint on Monday morning, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I won't be able to address it on the spot, but I could, you know, if as long as I had contact information, we could follow up with the individuals.
Heidi?
Yeah, as the downtown Kent representative, it's in Ward 5, I'm trying to really balance the needs of the businesses as well, and I want to try to keep them open. And I realize that the wearing of masks is key to them staying open and not having everybody go under lockdown. I would like to ask Gwen a question, since she is a downtown business owner. Gwen, how comfortable are you enforcing a mandatory mask issue? And have you had to do it yet? What would you do if somebody did not wear a mask? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay. I'm glad that you brought that. That's an excellent question. So if someone comes into my business, I do not confront them and make a big showy scene. Generally, I have an employee who's working there, and they are not in the health department or the law enforcement. So our employees all have masks, and there aren't, surprisingly, so many people in there that it's impossible to keep 6 feet of distance. So we'll just start with that. I wish, but there's not. So employees are not going to be confronting customers. We're not looking to cause a fight or anything like that. We're going to rely on residents to understand that we're in an unprecedented global pandemic, and the governor has told us to wear a face mask to protect one another. If somebody wants to march in and make a big show and be a total jerk, well, that's their prerogative to do so. So we're not going to confront them on that. We're probably just going to get them served and get them out as fast as we possibly can. If a resident wants to complain, if they want to go to Yelp, if they want to call the health department on me, that's also their prerogative too, and it's going to reflect poorly on my business. Again, this is an unprecedented global pandemic. Everybody's just going to have to kind of learn to deal with it. This ordinance looks to me like every ordinance that I've seen about face masks. You know, when you go into Zephyr Pub, they're having people wear face masks. When you're going to restaurants, this is an inevitable outcome. So that's what I've been telling my employees. And if we can all just kind of get along and get through this safely. So I don't know if that totally answers it, but no, I'm not going to have my employees charge out from behind the counter and confront someone without a mask on. It's their obligation as a human being on this planet to not be part of the spread of this virus. And I think that this ordinance basically codifies that sentiment, as did Governor DeWine.
Thank you. And do you hand out masks to people that, do you have a poster on the door, and do you hand out masks right now, or would you be willing to?
I would be willing to hand out masks, and I have done that. The Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp sent out a bunch of masks to a lot of the businesses, so you'll see a lot of employees and business owners with those masks. And I have given some of those masks out. There was a customer who was really uncomfortable, and he had an ill-fitting mask, so I just gave him one of mine. And I thought about buying the disposable mask. I'm going to think about. I have no problem with that. I think that might be a nice solution if it were a way that an employee could offer it. If somebody wanted it, because we do get people who come in and say, "Oh, I forgot it." You know, like those people are really friendly. They're not out to cause problems. They're not. Most of my customers don't stab people. You know, it's very reasonable, and I think that's how most of our residents are too. But yeah, I would buy masks and have them out if it were available. If it comes to that, but I feel like a lot of this is an inevitability that people are kind of expecting that the whole state's going to go this way. So I don't think it'll last for very long. This business of not knowing that we need a mask.
Yeah, I agree with that. So somebody buys an ice cream cone and they want to eat it outside. Do you give them any guidance on that, or?
No, they may eat their ice cream cone any way they choose.
Okay. So it's incumbent upon the people to know what the rules are.
That's right.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you can lick it down the bottom. No, I'm kidding.
So basically, do you agree that we need to do a really strong public education push so that people know what the rules are, and they also see the models of people that are wearing masks when the situations that call for it and the situations that might not, like sitting at a table eating an ice cream cone far away from other people?
we have more and more people that that are wearing masks every day as this goes on. Even customers that don't like it are getting the memo, and they're aware that this is the best way to prevent COVID. So there's not a lot of resistance. There's not a lot of confusion because people that are going out have been into enough places that this is pretty standard. If you can't stay 6 feet apart, you wear a face mask. And it looks like our surrounding communities have that same kind of language. So I like I like the idea of a sign on the door that my employee can say, if you have a problem with this, you call this hotline, go to this website. I think that takes the pressure off of employees. So I like that. But for the most part, I think the education component isn't where it was 3 months ago. A lot of people are already learning about this. I mean, we're getting blasted with it from kind of every different angle, just as you all are aware. So.
Thank you very much. Final question, do you think this will have a negative impact on your business?
I don't see it as having a negative impact. I'm hearing from a lot of people that feel like they would be safer to come downtown if there was an ordinance.
I am too. Thank you.
Okay. Is that it, John?
Yeah, Dave, do you think that it's the presumption by passing this ordinance that more people, because it is an ordinance, will start wearing masks, which is a plus, and even though there are a few that won't, just by presumption of having a law that will have more people with masks, which would be less for the virus. And if that happens, that's a good thing. Yes, is that a yes? I think your head's shaking.
Okay. Is that all? I can't see anybody because my screen is being blocked here. So there's no one from the public. All right. So the council.
Jack, Roger, I'd like to move that we accept the ordinance as it has been presented to council with the codicil that we give Hope and Dave the direction to come up with the process for the enforcement down the line as we unfold.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Second it.
Mike?
Yes.
Mike seconds the motion. Comments?
Yeah, I would just want to say that I think that realistically, and I know I don't want to sound hardcore about this expectation, but I really believe John said it very well, that the expectation is that we set the expectation as the leaders in the community that have been elected, that we want to protect at all costs every life of every citizen, every resident that's in our community. And there's no guarantees. None of us have the answers. There is no magic bullet. I wish there was. I wish I had a magic wand and it all goes away. But the reality is that whether it's the right course or the wrong course, it is the course that seems to have the best benefit to keep our people safe. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. The second piece is that businesses, if we do not stop this at the local level, eventually our businesses are going to be forced with a forced close down by the governor because there won't be any other option because people aren't going to go to the businesses. People like John, people who are old like myself, I'll wear a mask. I can't wait to go to Trino's and eat dinner. But the fact of the matter is if no one's wearing any mask, if we are not doing this together, we are not going to lick this thing. And I think we can. I really believe in the people in the city of Kent. I believe we set the expectation. And the third piece of this is I'm real concerned about our kids. I think we need to try to flatten this curve as quickly as possible and then give our teachers that are the professionals the opportunity to get kids back into school in some form, get education going again, but by being protected. And I think they all need to wear masks. So I'm all for the legislation, and that's my only comment. Mike, you're up.
We're all in this together. So, some people are going to wear a mask, some people aren't going to wear a mask. You're not going to change
Right.
them. So we got to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jack.
John's got a
I
comment.
cannot see anyone. Robin, you're next, and then Heidi.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Am I up?
Yeah,
You
you're
are,
up,
Robin.
Robin.
Oh, okay. The bottom line, at the end of the day, I kind of have a little disagreement with Roger. I don't think that you can uncouple enforcement from the requirement to wear. I mean, from our desire to implement this policy. I think it's an important aspect. Although the priority is the general health and welfare of the citizens of the community. We are going to get blowback. The enforcement aspect is somewhat problematic because it's indefinite right now. But that should not stop us from moving forward and doing what is in the best interest of the people who live here. That is our priority as elected officials and as representatives of the people of the city of Kent. And I'm proud that Joan and the administration are acting in a proactive manner. We're not to the level right now that requires a mandate, but we're acting now, which will save lives and create a greater health outcome for the community as well. And so I'm happy that we're doing this. I'm extremely pleased. It will be problematic in some aspects, but we'll get beyond it. And we're doing, I think at the end of the day, something we can be proud of as a representatives of the city. And I'm wholeheartedly supportive of adopting a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Heidi?
Yeah, well, as elected officials, our first duty is public safety. That is above everything else. However, we don't want to be stupid about things. We want to be pragmatic. So we do need to have a clear enforcement strategy. And that may be something that we're going to need to come back to council for. The other thing is we do need to support our businesses. And I think that the vast majority are doing the right thing. And I do credit our health department in that. And many of them are saying that. The health department has been fabulous in providing the education. But, they also have some safety factors too, as Gwen alluded to, in demanding somebody wear a mask. That is a little bit much to ask our businesses when somebody might be quite belligerent. We need to know how to deal with those potential situations, how to support them so that we can avoid those situations. Prevention is key. And I do take issue with Mike he said you can't change people, and I think we can. I think that we've already seen some changes with people wearing masks more frequently, in workplaces. I'm seeing it more often in my own workplace. I think that we all need to take it upon ourselves to do what we can to support, to help everybody in this. And I appreciate the governor's statements, even though I wish he really would have gone a little further in helping us out with some directives. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Anybody else? I can't see, so
Yeah.
you'll have to speak up.
Yeah. I'm going to wear a mask. I believe in the social distancing. I wish I could teach people how to sanitize their hands. I will abstain from the vote basically because I feel that I don't know if government should tell people what to do with their own body, but I think it's a good ordinance, and I'm most likely, because I do anyhow, I already follow the ordinance that wasn't written, but that's it.
Jack?
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm going to support the ordinance because it is for public safety. And I like Roger's thinking that we need to change the culture, but I know inevitably the best way to change the culture is going to be for enforcement, because we have seen this over and over again. I mean, just look at our shoveling sidewalks example. I mean, that's an ordinance that we've had in place for years, and the culture for people shoveling their sidewalks just has not changed. So I like what Roger said about changing the culture. I'm 120% behind that, but I think Mike is also right. And the only way people are going to really change is if there are going to be consequences. So I'm sure that we're going to have to be coming back down later on and figuring out a way. Hopefully I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're probably going to end up doing that. I'm
Okay,
done.
further? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Abstain. One abstention.
Passed, right?
Yes,
Yes.
passed with one extension. All right, we're gonna get into the regular council meeting. Would the court please read the roll?
Mr. Amrine,
Here.
Mr. De Leon,
Here.
Mr. Ferrara,
Here.
Mr. Kuhar,
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Here.
Ms. Schaefer,
Here.
Mr. Sidoti,
Here.
Mr. Turner,
Here.
and Ms. Wallach.
Here.
Okay, opening remarks and pledge by Mr. Amrine.
Yeah, I have no opening remarks. Would you please stand for the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We need approval of the minutes. Jack?
Yes, I would like to move the minutes for the public hearing on June 3rd, the regular city council meeting, June 17th, the special meeting, July 1st, and the public hearings on July 1st.
Second.
Second by John. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Get into communications. I don't think there's public with us to communicate, is there?
No, there's not.
All right, thank you. Written communications, I think we'll be here for a while, but bear with us. Amy?
There's quite a few. Alrighty, I received a letter from the Department of Commerce regarding the approval of the operation of the DORA in the city of Kent, Ohio. I received that on June 27th, 2020. The letter was forwarded to council members on June 29th.
Oh.
Standing Rock Cemetery meeting agenda for July 9th and the meeting minutes from June 11th were received on June 29th. The Sustainability Commission meeting agenda for July 6th and the minutes from June 1st were received on July 1st. An email from Mr. Mercer, a resident of Kent, Ohio, regarding requiring the use of masks was received on June 29th, 2020 and forwarded to city council members. Emails from Tony Mosca, Iris Meltzer, and Chris Cowles regarding requiring the use of masks were received on July 15th and forwarded to council. The following communications were received after the agenda was published. I received the July board packet from the Parks and Recreation Board on July 10th, 2020. And the following emails were received between July 9th and July 15th from the following individuals. They're all on file with the Clerk of Council's office. I received the following emails for the city passing a mask ordinance from Elizabeth Smith Pryor and Richard E. Pryor, Cynthia Price, Helen and Richard Burdett, Lori Zalefro, Jennifer Mapes, Jacob Barkley, Kat Holtz, Tara Smith, Melissa Zula, Ann Jefferson, Kelly Green, Sarah Koopman, Linda Miles, Catherine Greenwood, Todd Boyles, Matthew McMinn, Barb Wendell, Jennifer Odinger, Enrico Gandolfi, Matthew Crawford, Kristen Weiss, Dana Lawless Andrick, Mary Stepp, Deborah Smith, Tammy Cluell, Teresa Walton Pizzette, Urali Shanker and Sonia Shanker, Robin Van de Zand, Mark Mister, Mindy Urig, Wesley Rabe, Linda Picarillo Smith, Pamela Grimm, Chris Carmen, Brad and Jody Maxwell, Dave Kaplan, Jennifer Tabor, Mark Breacher, Robert Walker, Christine Gillespie, Ellen Rubin, Tracy Foreman, Vivian Sandlin, Barb Barkley, Sue Roxburgh, Rebecca Cato, Ellen and Maureen Smalley, Michael Davis, Christopher Dumm, Christopher M. Myers, Aaron Lance, Elaine and Jerry May, Joyce Snodgrass, and Denise and Gary Moe. All of those emails are on copies are on file in my office. The following residents emailed with concerns against the mask mandate. All have been forwarded to council members are on file with the council office. The following were received from Jessica West, Jin Young Kim, Jesse Gray, Nicole Costa, and Randy Lyle. Next, I received an email for a push for greater police accountability by creating a civilian oversight committee, as well as a new policy for minor drug offenses. That email is on file and was received from Victor Barrett McCartney. I received a letter regarding the appearance of the old police station at 319 South Water Street, along with pictures of the property. I received that on July 15th and forwarded that to council from Mary L. Kennelly. I also received a letter from Laura Mazur regarding the waste drop-off site, and that has been forwarded to council on July 15th. A letter from Melissa Clemens a letter from Melissa Clemens regarding traffic speed in the city of Kent and a wish to create a community-involved program to make the streets safer was received on July 15th. And an email from a tree hugger, Mariah Reincarnated, regarding lowering the voting age to 12 was received on July 15th and forwarded to council. That's all.
All right, thanks, Amy. It's quite a list. So move on to the city manager report, Jack.
Yeah, I'd like to move items 1 through 8 on the manager's report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Gwen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. We'll move into the committee of a whole. I need a motion for the minutes of July 1st and authorization. Who's going to make it?
I'll do it. I'll move the committee meeting minutes from approval of July 1st, 2020, and the one action recommended.
Who's the second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-59 in title only?
Draft number 2020-59, an ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the City of Kent codified ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please read call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine? Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Heidi's muted.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kumar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-59 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-60 in title only?
Draft number 2020-60, a resolution affirming that Black Lives Matter and that the city of Kent is committed to condemning racism and encouraging a commitment to fair and equal treatment for all.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine? Oh, we lost him.
MIA.
Disconnecting.
What do we do?
Did he lose?
He's coming, he's connecting.
All right.
Give him a second.
We have the votes necessary.
What does our law director say?
No, all we need is 7 votes.
Yeah, we have the necessary votes.
Hey, that move adoption.
All right, let's assume suspension passed.
Move adoption. Tracy.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
Yeah. It's the right thing to do.
Anybody else? With that said, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon? Oh, you're muted.
Yes.
Mike, you're muted. Yeah.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kumar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Hell, yes.
And we still don't have Mr. Amrine.
Well, we had the votes to pass it, so.
So, resolution 2020-60.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can. You vote yes, Jack, or no?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay.
All right. All
Okay,
right,
resolution 2020-60 is passed.
all right, that's it for the committee of the whole. Community development, Mr. Kuhar. Need a motion for the minutes.
There's nothing there.
Nothing. Have nothing.
There are no minutes, sir.
Who seconded it?
Roger.
Roger?
No, there's.
There's nothing there.
There are no minutes.
We have nothing.
Nothing there.
I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. That's I apologize. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'd like to move the minutes of the committee meeting and the actions listed.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-61 in title only?
Draft number 2020-61, an ordinance authorizing LTC Brimfield LLC, a water tap-in for a new 96 bed skilled nursing facility located at 5075 State Route 43 in Malloy Road outside of the city of Kent and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second. Please call. Suspension. Who's echoing? Okay, suspension. Do I have a motion for adoption?
I do the roll call.
Amy, let me back up. Call the roll.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
and Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Need a motion for adoption.
Move adoption.
Second.
Mike? John, second it. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
Not a bit.
Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-61 has passed.
Okay, I don't know who has the weird whistle, but I wish they'd turn it off. We're gonna move into land use committee. Mr. Ferrara? There's nothing?
Nothing.
There's no recommendation. All right. Streets and sidewalks, or public safety, Mr. Amrine.
Yes, I'd like to move the special meeting minutes from July 15th and the committee meetings from July 1st.
Second?
Second.
Second by Heidi. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2062 in title only?
Draft number 2020-62, an ordinance requiring facial coverings in indoor and outdoor areas accessible to the public and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, go ahead, Tracy.
I was gonna say, I think it's a really good step to protect the public health, especially we're doing preemptive, so I think that's fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar,
Abstain.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine, Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-62 has passed.
I don't think we moved the action. Did you move the
Yep.
action back?
We didn't. I needed to, I tried to interrupt Jerry, but I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, all right.
Tracy Wallach and Heidi Schaefer did the action.
So we did?
No, this is the action, not the motion.
The action recommended. We didn't, I didn't.
All right, somebody make the motion.
Move to,
Well, I move that I move that we approve the action recommended.
Oh, I see.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I apologize for transverting those. All right, that's it for health and safety. Finance Committee, Mr. De Leon.
I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes of approval for July 1st, 2020, and the 4 actions recommended.
second.
Second, is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed at this sign. All right, that passes. Rhonda, I understand you have an insert put in here.
I did. Thank you very much. I just wanted to give everybody an update. We had the bonds were bid out by a few banks. We actually received 4 bids for the bonds that you all approved last month. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm happy to say that we got 1.29% for the next 10 years.
Great.
And I also wanted to say thank you to David Coffey for rolling over the notes year after year, so that way we were able to obtain this low interest rate this year. If you hadn't done that, we're not sure what kind of interest rate you would have had, but 1.29%, I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
So congratulations. That's all I wanted to let you know.
All right, thank you. That's a lot of good news.
Thank you.
All right, would the clerk read draft number 2020-63 in title only?
Draft number 2020-63, a resolution adopting the tax budget of the city of Kent, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021, submitting the same to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amorine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Is there any discussion on adoption? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amorine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
The ordinance 2020-60, resolution 2020-63 was passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-64 in title only?
Draft number 2020-64, a resolution determining to proceed to submit to the electors of the city of Kent the question of the renewal of the city's existing 0.73 mil tax levy for the purpose of providing sufficient funds for the current expense of maintaining and operating a fire station in the city of Kent west of the Erie Railroad pursuant to sections 5705.19I and 5705.191 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second.
Second. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amorine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
and Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adoption? I got one question, Hope. Should that be Erie Railroad or should that be the cluster? Barberton, whatever cluster in the ordinance.
Good catch.
You know what? I don't know on this one because our outside counsel drafted it.
Well, it used to be the Erie Railroad, but now it's Akron, Barberton, somebody else's cluster. It's just a figure of speech, really.
Well, I guess before you pass it this way, will someone make an amendment that if it needs to be amended to the cluster, that the clerk can make that typographical change?
Yeah, Mike, you know it.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
No,
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
no, we gotta go through the roll. Yeah, sorry.
No, we amended it.
Yeah, okay, yes.
All right, thanks, Tracy. All right, now we're gonna move for adoption.
Oh.
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion on adopting this besides what I said? Please call the roll.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine. Mr.
Yes.
De, Mr. Okay, Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
and Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
The resolution 2020-64 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-65 in title only?
Draft number 2020-65, an ordinance accepting and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an agreement within the city of Kent, Ohio, obtaining a temporary easement in 679 square feet of real property from John N. Reeves II, 1215 Middlebury Road for $360 for the purpose of a temporary right-of-way and the construction of the Southwest Sanitary Pump Station project and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Jack.
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
and Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-65 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-66 in title only?
2020-66, an ordinance accepting and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an agreement with the city of Kent, Ohio, obtaining a temporary easement in 9,875 square feet of real property from Mark F. Collins, 1178 Middlebury Road, for $1,310 for the purpose of a temporary right-of-way and the construction of the Southwest Sanitary Pump Station project and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-66 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-67 in title only?
Draft number 2020-67, an ordinance accepting and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an agreement with the city of Kent, Ohio, obtaining a temporary easement in 483 square feet of real property from Tony Canal, 1234 Middlebury Road for $300 for the purpose of a temporary right-of-way and the construction of the Southwest Sanitary Pump Station project and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll for suspension.
Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-67 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-68 in title only?
An 2020-68, an ordinance accepting and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute an agreement with the city of Kent, Ohio, obtaining a temporary easement in 579 square feet of real property from Gail A. Newbert, now known as Gail A. Tull, 1240 Middlebury Road for $300 for the purpose of a temporary right-of-way and the construction of the Southwest Sanitary Pump Station project and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
and Ms. Wallach.
yes,
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
Mm.
Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
yes,
Ordinance 2020-68.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-69 in title only?
Draft number 2020-69, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-139, the current appropriation ordinance passed December 18th, 2019, so as to adjust appropriations, transfers, and advances from the various funds of the city of Kent, individual accounts for the current expenses of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
and Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
and Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-69 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2020-70 in title only?
Draft number 2020-70, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $200 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department from Ronald Swearingen and Judith Swearingen to purchase a memorial tree in memory of Rita Thomas and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Yes.
and Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
yes,
Mr. Amrine,
Jack.
Mr.
Yes.
Amrine, and Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-70 has passed.
Okay, I think that's it for Finance Committee. Is there anything under unfinished business? Is there anything under new business? Heidi, or Tracy, I'm sorry.
Even now.
Oh.
So I think we had a really good discussion with the police department at the last committee meeting, and I'm very proud of our police department. But as they said, we can always improve. So I wanted to see if people be interested. I don't know if you want to put this in a committee to discuss first or what. Setting up like a group that would discuss things like how to get money for additional training, or possibly setting up scholarships for people of color to attend Kent State in the criminal justice system, and then they would do something like commit to 5 years to be a police officer in Kent or something like that. So do you want to put that in a committee to discuss first?
Second.
Okay.
That's second by Heidi. So is there further discussion, Tracy?
I think that's about it.
Heidi, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think it's important that we look at strategies to improve our recruiting for people, all kinds of people across all of our staffing in the city. And, you know, maybe even looking at ways that we can, you know, award points or, you know, look at background checks and things that are really that have been hurdles. So I think it would be a really good idea to talk about this further, because I think it is a impediment. Many things are impediments, and we need to really be clear on how we can move forward in recruiting more people of color.
Yeah, and also, can I also continue?
Go ahead.
It's been found that the SATs and the ACTs are discriminatory against people, minorities. And so this might be the same case with the civil service test too. So we might have to have some sort of way to compensate or something like that.
Don't forget, this is a civil service process too. Roger.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I think the chief mentioned that we had people who were eligible past the civil service test, but they struggled with passing background checks. So, well, I agree with you, Tracy, no, because I've been steeped into the ACT, SAT issue for, you well know, 35, 40 years. I also think that we do have to do something to encourage all minorities to apply to the city of Kent. I think there are highly qualified people who will be able to qualify, and the key is encouraging them in some way. I'm not sure what that is, but I agree with you, Tracy. I think our police are doing a wonderful job looking over those 25 out of 28 that we hit, and I think, you know, recruitment is all of our jobs if we can do it. So,
is there any other discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is this to create a committee, or is this to just discuss the hiring practices? I feel like Lieutenant Lewis always does an excellent job kind of explaining their hiring process and what we're already doing to recruit minorities. And I'm wondering if maybe having a report from Lieutenant Lewis about that before we make a motion to kind of come up with ideas, or just to kind of get a base level understanding of where we're at. I think
this was a motion to create a committee that would maybe meet annually or semi-annually or quarterly or something like that to discuss the different issues, such as recruitment and things.
So it would be like a city council committee that we would then meet.
Well, that's what we would have to discuss. What kind of committee we want. I mean, is it going to be, you know, like citizens, city council, police, chief, police, you know, officers, or maybe we don't want anything at all.
Okay, Heidi.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Gwen, is that I think that the idea is to have a little bit more fleshed out discussion on, is this something that we want to get a report on and see whether there's something that a committee could work on, or maybe there's some other strategies of the staff. I think that we just don't want to take up time having a debate here. Just put it on the agenda for a future meeting.
there any more
Uh,
discussion?
eh,
Oh,
Yeah,
Robin.
Mayor. Yeah. I would agree with that. The formulation of a committee at this time, I think, is a little premature. I think the discussion is something which is most important, acknowledging that there is an issue and a concern, and that we need to sit down and formulate a plan about what direction to move in, whether that discussion would include our administrators, the staff, the chief of police, the fire chief, the other department heads. Don't forget, we've got not just an issue in the safety forces, but one throughout the city. I think we've got one or two blacks in the entire city workforce. And that's not necessarily the fault of the city. I mean, I think it's recruitment. It could be other issues, but those are things that I think we'll probably be able to discuss with a little more understanding as we sit down and develop a process that we want to and a direction we want to move in. So I support the concept of discussing it and then developing a policy or an action plan. So, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
I have another quick question.
Go ahead.
Would you be interested in expanding the scope of it to include not just the Kent Police Department, but also fire and other city departments, and possibly even our boards and commissions? Because
Yes.
that's been a topic that's come up. Perhaps even expanding
That's
it a
fine.
little bit. Would you be opposed to broadening it?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. As
No, I think that's a great idea.
I agree. Yes, it's necessary.
So are you going to amend your motion, Tracy?
I can't amend it.
Huh?
I can't amend it. Well, just to all, what did you say? Everybody, all departments.
All right. Heidi, is that acceptable with you?
Yes, I think that's what I said in my initial remarks was that, across the board.
All right. I think we satisfied Gwen's curiosity. Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Is there further,
I
Tracy?
got one more.
All right.
I want to let people know that the Board of Elections is looking for poll workers. My husband volunteered, so if you're brave to do this election, it's a very important election. If anybody would be willing to do poll working, let the Board of Elections know.
Okay, thank you. John, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know that we need to have this a committee motion, but just wonder if we could maybe have the administration get back with us if they think it would be possible to put sanitation stations in the downtown area and keep them supplied for people to sanitize their hands.
So that's not a motion, that's just a discussionary gesture?
Do we need a motion? I mean, if so, it's a motion.
Oh, is there a second one here? Second to the motion?
Second, we can use.
I'll second.
Wait, Tracy, you got the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can use the COVID funds to do that, I would think.
Well, now you have to include the health department. So, all right, is there any more discussion on that?
Well, the biggest problem I see with the spread of this virus is people aren't sanitizing properly. And if you have something in front of them when they walk out of a store or a bar, the chances are at least a good majority of the people will walk up and push the button. And that's my only thoughts. And I think even while this virus is going on, that's a small price to pay to keep things a little safer.
Tracy, any more?
No.
Does anybody else have any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. John, you had your hand up about, is that it?
That was it.
All right, is anybody else? Mr.
Mayor, Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robin.
what, with John's motion, what's the implementation of this then? What are we doing here? Is it going into a committee or what?
Yes.
Administration.
Oh, what committee?
Administration.
That's not a committee.
I would assume health and safety, right?
Right.
Oh,
That would
okay,
be my guess.
okay,
Are you satisfied?
yes.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would just wonder, if we could expedite this before the next meeting, if they wanted to look at that and say it's feasible, they could do it, or, rather than wait a month.
That's your choice. Heidi?
Yeah, well, I would say that, this is part and parcel of putting the DORA together, and I think they'll take into account that. That is part of the outside recreation aspect. So I think, John, I think that maybe the health department has heard. We were in a motion, so the staff couldn't really say anything, but I believe that they're taking that to heart, and we'll look into doing what's right.
Yeah.
Roger.
Yeah, I just think that we ought to give the administration the latitude to implement it as they see fit. And as quickly as possible, it'll meet the DORA. We have DORA starting on Friday, so the sooner we can implement it, the better. So, I think it warrants coming back and having some conversation, but they should be moving ahead with an implementation if they can find the money in the COVID dollars.
Okay, anybody else? Amy, read the original motion, and do we have to alter it for what Roger just said?
The original motion was to have the administration put sanitation stations downtown.
Okay, Roger, do you feel like you want to amend that?
No, I think that says it all.
All right, I just want to be clear. All right, everybody in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anybody else?
No, I have something, Mr. Mayor.
Roger.
Yeah, I'd just like to do a shout out to Jim Bowling. Mrs. Clemens, a neighbor living within West Side, has talked with me on numerous occasions about the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in residential areas. And I got to tell you, both Dave and Jim jumped on that. And I think that Mrs. Bowling, Chief, you need to know that, or I'm sorry, not Mrs. Bowling, Mrs. Clemens, Chief, sooner or later, she really really wants to help the police department in trying to find ways of enforcement of that 25-mile-an-hour to kind of take the pressure off the police to do it, but find out ways of doing it. So I'm sure Jim is going to be involved in this. And, I thought she's very happy with the fact that there is some response. And I must say, living in that neighborhood, 25-mile-an-hour, most people view it as a suggestion. I think it's like in Italy, how they drive. It's terrible. So, and police do the best they can, So, but anyway, I just wanted to shout out to both Dave and Jim for the help they gave her.
Anybody else?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Mr. Pereira.
Yeah, I'd like to refer to committee, or maybe just to the administration, the possibility of vacating 1118 Adrian Avenue over in White Oak Hills. A gentleman had come about, wanted to buy the parcel, and it's a city-owned parcel, and they've seemed to have come to agreement about it, that they're not going to be able to sell it. And I talked with Bridget about it, and she said we could prefer the administration to come back to council on us.
I think they copied Dave on that letter, because I got it too.
Yeah.
Did they not, Dave?
I mean, they may have, Jerry. I'm struggling remembering that specific reference, but I'm sure.
It was Bob Brandon and Tim Sarr joined the property, and I think it was.
They wanted to originally build a house back there.
Right.
Somebody did, right? But
yeah.
it's a non-buildable lot basically, and so.
We did talk. I did see that. Yes.
Yeah.
And,
Musselman owned it, right? Was that correct?
yeah. Yeah. So I think there is interest in that from our perspective.
It's not the one out by Fish Creek or out off of Graham, is it? Or
Mike, you got your hand up?
Well, is that the property where they were going to put the driveway next to the people's property?
That's correct.
So you're saying you would like to vacate it to the people who live there instead of the people that want to put the house in?
Correct.
There's no longer, yeah,
Correct.
as I understand it, there's no longer interest in that party, from one party to build. So the two people that live adjoining to that property would like the city to vacate it so they can each take half.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, that's fine.
So do we need to put that back in administration even though Dave knows about it?
Yeah, we'll update you all. I'll get with Bridget on that and hope will get involved.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything further? I guess we're down. Is there any more council comments?
I do have. Who wants to go? Me?
Mike.
Okay. I talked to Scott Swan from the trustee from Franklin Township, and since we have a mask ordinance, they passed one last night to piggyback with us, so we both have it now in all of Franklin Township. So he told me that it was all dependent on what we did. I said, well, don't you guys got any guts?
It's kind of like Halloween. They won't do their trick or treat until they find out what we do.
But we're all together on this. I said, we're all in this together, so.
Well, they can succeed to the city. Heidi, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I want to say, hey, Mike, way to go, because that was one of my concerns, that people really don't know the boundaries of Kent and Franklin Township. So that eases one of my concerns about confusion. I want to thank all the citizens and constituents, business owners who wrote and called and texted their opinions to us about the masking ordinance, pro and con, and all, places in between, as well as all the other concerns they brought to us. I think that's what makes Kent special, is the participation of the citizenry. The second thing I want to say is I'm going to throw a challenge out to the press, to my knowledge, who have not reported on the resolution that Tracy and Robin and I worked on and council approved, the resolution supporting the mission of Black Lives Matter, condemning racism and encouraging a commitment to fair and equal treatment for all. That resolution has been fleshed out, and we only read the title of it, but I would like for the citizens to either go on our agenda and see what we've written, and also for the people who don't do that, maybe to have some of this printed in the local newspapers and online publications. I think it's worth putting out there. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, I have something.
Mr. Ferrer.
I just
I'm sorry, Gwen. Go, Mr.
That's okay.
Ferrer.
Oh, I turn it over to, go ahead, Gwen.
Oh, it's fine. Whatever, I'll go. I feel like it's been a relatively police-filled meeting a little bit, but I would just like to take a moment to commend Chief Shearer and the Kent Police Department in their locating and bringing back to safety that missing teenager. I did happen upon one of the police officers that evening who was searching for her before she was declared missing. And the concern in his voice and what he was saying, he wanted to find that young woman as badly as everyone who knew her did. So I want to commend the police department. I want to thank them, and also the assisting federal agencies. I understand that we have an excellent relationship with U.S. Marshals. So that's wonderful to hear, and I'm so grateful to them for their assistance in that.
You go ahead.
Garrett, now it's you, I guess.
Well said, Gwen. That was right on target. I just wanted to clarify Heidi's comment that we we made the statement that we affirm that Black Lives Matter and that all people are created equal. I don't believe it was the mission of the organization Black Lives Matter.
Correct.
That there's a big difference.
Okay. Roger, did you have something to say on that?
No, I agree with Garrett that I think we got to be careful. We'll go back, maybe even look at exactly what the wording was, but I don't believe we said the mission of an organization, but we certainly support the Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, we're down to the mayor's report. I just want to thank everybody that supported this mask issue. If you haven't seen the video that the health department puts out there, I understand it's very good, and they had some good actors in it. I'll put it that way. And like I said, it's very educational, and it's very well done. And if you haven't seen it, go see it. The other thing is, you know, what we did tonight with the mask is you are concerned about the community that we live in, the health and safety of that community, and you're also concerned of what the mask can do to control the virus, to keep our businesses open. And I think that's the key thing. So if there's nothing else, we're going to adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
Good
Mayor.
night.